writer. If you have not yet seen or purchased his book, Funky Skills, you must. So, there.
Thanks, Tommy.
And let's thank Adam Strong on the camera. He does videos of every one of these. So when we're done with this, if you actually like for a small fee, which he won't take, just for me, but it's a lot, and I'm just taking your money. He will he'll cut it down and actually make a video for you. It's you. We used to do all the things, but it was a lot of time for Adam. But thank you, Adam Strong, and literally it's not money and everything. I wouldn't take your money. Thank you, Adam Strong. Thank you, Buddy Jesky on the door. And a huge thanks to Crush Bar and Chris Stewart for setting this stuff up. Chris is the guy who sets up all the stuff here. So thank you, everybody. In case you don't know who I am, but some of you probably don't know, who the fuck is this nigga? Who's talking? Who's talking? Hush. Right now. You just hush. Hopefully it was somebody I know. Oh my god. That'd be terrible. There. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm Dami Schrager. My name is whole life. I'm born with it. My name is Dami, but it does not speak to my proclivities necessarily. And thank you all for being here. I also want to. I got it. Oh, thank you. That sound is making me have to pee for some reason. You ever have those feelings of one of those sounds that makes you just have to pee a little bit? Like when you chew, like to me if I accidentally get what's that, tinfoil in my teeth? Yeah, well that hurts, yes, it hurts, but does that ever make you want to pee? That's just me, I guess. Oh wow. Yeah, for me, okay. I'm fizzling around and slowing down a little bit because I have something that's kind of emotional for me to say, but I'm going to say, I got to tell you guys. I've been doing this thing for almost 6 years. We, not I, oh God. We've all been doing this thing for the past 6 years. This is our 24th burn tongue. August 16th is our 25th burn tongue, and our 6-year anniversary, and it will be our last burn tongue. Yeah. So, I made that decision a few weeks ago. Well, I made it a year ago, and then I made it 6 months ago, and then I made it a few weeks ago. But the good news is that I don't know if, well, some of you know this. I work at Corporeal Writing down at Corporeal Center with Lydia Yankovic, and I will be starting a reading series down there, which is not necessarily the reason for stopping this, but this has been such my heart. And so many of you have been here from the very, very beginning, and I want to roll you guys over into not roll you, I want to roll you over. Roll right down I want to. How's that? So yeah. So thank you all for being here, and I'm really glad that those of you who agreed to be here are here. And I'm super stoked that there are people here that I don't even know, because people like Chuck Malek and Monica Drake said, hey, these guys want to read, and I'm like, David Chiminello. I'm like, okay, I trust you guys, let's do it. All right. Yeah, I'm still, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Leah, not Leah. Our first reader tonight is the wonderful and lovely Leah Bear. Leah is a 74-year-old storyteller, writer, and lover of life. She has studied with Tom Spanbauer, Richard Mosier, Andy Mingo, and Lydia Yankovic, and has done storytelling at Roar, Fierce Female Storytelling, and readings at Burton, The Poe Show, Book Lovers Burlesque, PDF Songbook, Grief Rights, and Unchased Readers. Oh, honey, you're around. A story she submitted to Voice, I copied this one, to Voice Catcher was just accepted. And as a note, the last time she dared submit a story anywhere was 1973. And she did it again because she got some really crummy feedback. And she's just started taking burlesque classes. Life is just getting started for Leah. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about bodies, about how much time most of us, me included, spend being apologetic about them. And I'm not going to do it anymore. So I started attending a body-positive burlesque show called Book Lovers Burlesque, right here at Brush Bar on this stage. And then I started taking body-positive burlesque classes. Oh, I'm not going to do the whirling tassel thing. That takes way more coordination. But I love it. And the first day of class, they showed us something. Can I show you? The words that go through that and with that are hello. It's so nice to see you. I'm so glad you came. And I am glad that you came here and that all of us are here. And I'm really glad about these classes in so many ways. And one of them is that they really helped me so much that I made a decision about something that I'm not going to hide anymore. Decades ago, I had a really horrific accident, multiple surgeries, plates, pins, stuff. And my leg healed perfectly. And now that I'm older, it's getting worse, and I have another surgery. But that's not a sad thing, it'll make it better. But in the meantime, I've decided I'm not hiding anymore. So I bought this outfit, which shows both legs. And I've decided that instead of fearing that people are going to think it's a horrible sight, well, you know what? If they did, and if they said anything, unfuck them. It's their problem. And I plan to live joyously in this body. And I hope you do in your bodies too, until the day we leave the planet. And maybe even then, more so afterward, without a body. I don't know. But right now, happiness. So, first poem. Oh, I don't know anything about poetry, but I took a class with Bridget Mosher, who is the sister of the new. And this poem is called Burlesque. How long has it been since you touched yourself and felt true? And you felt the satin scars, whispering stories old as stars. How many shames, how many times made you silence your song lines? Ancient song lines run through the earth. Also, lines think have no worth. With stories we try not to claim, and scars from lands scorched with pain. The wrist scars cut the wrong way because you really wanted to stay. Breasts carved out by the surgeon's knife, flattened plain, but you have life. Bodies map of shattered bones, lost children, raped, broken homes, but now you sing in safe spaces, song lines from your sacred places. In burlesque, you touch and love you just as the sweetest lovers do. And one last one, a French, which I read in Lusty Letters in burlesque, and somebody did a burlesque dance after this. A French manifesto for women. It's inspired by a French feminist named Hélène Cixous. In French, there is a word made especially for women, jouissance. It means play, delight, rapture, and orgasm. Live and love your body orgasmically. Sing and dance your gorgeous body which exists for you and you alone, your body. Wet and essential, hard and muscular, soft and curvaceous. Never believe those who say you are not enough, or that you are too much, or that you are too old. They are liars. There is no new and old women's bodies. Every age gives us a new body, and this is mine. And it knows unheard of songs, unseen dances. Your body knows them too. Run your hands over your flat plains, your rolls of fat, your curves. You are luscious. Dance naked in front of mirrors of your sensual body. Touch your own sweet erotic places. They are yours and yours alone, not for anybody else to have, to touch, without your permission. Love your body, your shape, your words, and dance. If your breasts are not as high as they once were, if your belly is not as flat as it once was, remember this. You have not lost a thing. You've just gained a new and glorious body. Reclaim your body and your time, for it is yours. And it always was. Feel your resounding body. Feel your resounding voice in that body. Love, live, fuck, sing, speak, and dance for the sheer orgasmic jouissance of being alive.
Thank you so much for being there. Next, I'd like to introduce a very good friend of mine, she and I are going to be doing a workshop June 30th and July 1st at Corporeal Writing. And if you're interested in that, please get a hold of me. You will go away with, she's a book artist, so you'll go away with a book. So anyway, I'm going to tell you, Ruth Bryant is a book artist who sees herself as a facilitator of stories. Her primary task and biggest challenge in bookmaking is constructing an object that, in every facet of its invention, serves the story she's attempting to tell. Ruth recently moved back to Portland after completing her MFA at the University of Iowa Center for the Book. Her current work explores issues of trauma, memory, and narrativity, and utilizes pop-up structures, 3D paper construction, and paper weaving techniques. Bryant's work has been exhibited throughout the U.S. and internationally, and is held in various public and private collections. Please welcome to the stage, Ruth Bryant.
I feel like I was communing with Leah's spirit this morning because my belly just wanted to be free. I found out that my baby was dead when I went in for my first ultrasound. Until then, I'd been following along each week with the app on my phone that told me the size of the creature inside me. First a pea, then a kidney bean, a grape, then a kumquat. I watched the screen while the tech rubbed the wand over my belly, then inserted it into me when she didn't find what she was looking for. She was completely silent, blank-faced. I waited to see the fluttery heartbeat, or maybe the branching leaves of a fruiting body. But there was nothing. A gestational sac holding the idea of a baby. A few days later, I might cry, you guys.
It's okay.
Yeah. A few days later, the doctor who performed my DNC, or dilation and curettage, remarked that it was best I have the procedure to remove what was left of the pregnancy, that there was the possibility my body could hold onto the remains for several months more. At the time, I didn't know that you could have a miscarriage without bleeding, and I couldn't escape the horror of knowing that my body continued to retain bits of my tiny dead baby. Even after the D&C, I was flushed with hormones, which made me feel as though I was still pregnant. For weeks, I had dreams of accidentally drowning helpless animals and of killing my child because I didn't know how to feed it. I couldn't make sense of this betrayal except to believe that my body was poisoned. When all of this happened, I was in the final stretch of finishing my graduate thesis work. I had planned out the completion of my degree, my move back to Portland, and giving birth with my family and friends all around me. But there was no contingency for a missed miscarriage. Still, I was fortunate to have something that required such intense focus, because I had been handed this annihilating despair, and I could easily have succumbed to it. All I knew was that I had to finish my degree, and I had to get the fuck out of Iowa. Yeah. A couple of days after the ultrasound, one of my thesis advisors took me to Hickory Hill Park to throw rocks at trees, and another took me to the recycling center to throw glass bottles at metal bins. I was good at hitting trees and bad at getting bottles into the bins, but what mattered was the human contact. My body felt ravaged, and Trump was our new president, and I just needed to be reminded that I existed, that I was alive outside my despair. One day as I was walking home from the studio, I found a tree branch fallen in the middle of a sidewalk. Beside it was the tiny, feathered body of a woodpecker, dead from its impact with the pavement. I stood over it, gasping for breath and crying, wanting to open my chest and tuck it inside. If this little bird could come back to life, maybe it could tap my heart into beating again. But it was too late. We had both died in pursuit of our desires. My wife Sarah and I tried to get pregnant for 3 consecutive months before it worked. We were shocked and felt incredibly lucky when it did, because we knew that we were doing it all wrong. Our friend Izumi would go into our bathroom to produce his donation, and then he would stand around and shoot the shit while his sperm died in the cup. It finally worked on New Year's Day 2017. Izumi had gone home to Chicago for the winter break, and I determined that I would be ovulating over the holiday. The 3 of us commiserated about what to do and decided that Sarah and I would come up and get a hotel. By day, we ran around the city looking for communist monuments, and by night, we did weird gay people science. We did. It was weird. It was really weird. The world was an increasingly terrifying place, but our new year would come with new hope and a new baby. When I got discouraged, Izumi would reassure me that we were a team, and we were. We still are. I met Izumi through our mutual involvement in our grad student labor union. We were part of a small radical group within the governing board of the union that did less than legal shit to call out and fuck with the university's administrators and state government officials. We were a real thorn in their side. We still are, yeah. During contract negotiations, Izumi would paint his face as an act of psychological warfare against the Board of Regents officials. He was also an MFA student. Our group, which consisted entirely of queer women, with the exception of Izumi, a queer man, would gather at George's, a dingy bar that primarily served older townies and had the best cheeseburgers around. We would drink and loudly talk shit while the old men and professors cheered and shushed us. It was there that I first asked Izumi if he would be willing to donate his sperm to Sarah and me. He answered enthusiastically, "Of course," and I was taken aback by his instant agreement. We talked through all of the implications and discussed his role in this experiment, and Izumi never wavered. After the miscarriage, it took a couple months for my hormones to get back down to pre-pregnancy levels. By then, I was torpedoing towards graduation, and my menstrual cycle, which had always been so reliable, was hopelessly off-kilter. There was no chance of succeeding again without medical intervention. On top of that, Izumi had been offered a job as a television producer in New York, and Sarah and I were planning our imminent move back to Portland. I mourned the loss of this beautiful man from my daily life, but I also mourned what seemed like my only chance of becoming pregnant. Just before we left Iowa, Izumi drove with me in the fading daylight to the Devonian Fossil Gorge. We spread our bodies out on that ancient seabed as the sun set and the fireflies flickered out from the trees. Izumi and I tried to discern airplanes flying overhead from possible alien spacecrafts, and talked about family traumas and whether we thought ghosts were real. Everything was magical. Everything was magical, and I loved this sweet human boy. I wanted to hold him and to mother him, but you can't keep a person. It's been months since we moved to our disparate ends of the country. In Portland, I've undergone all sorts of invasive tests, which have determined that I have diminished ovarian reserve. So not only do I not have a ready supply of sperm, there's also no guarantee that I would have an available egg on any given cycle. This is the double whammy of being queer and having infertility. Last January, Izumi came for a visit and underwent the gauntlet of requirements put forward by our fertility clinic to become a known donor for us. He went through medical and psychological testing, filled out personality profiles, and signed legal contracts, all to do what we had previously been doing, but now with the help of a doctor. When the psychologist reported back to us that Izumi had anxiety, which could potentially be inherited, Sarah's response was something like, "Bitch, please." I told the psychologist that my father was a cult leader and I wasn't worried about what was in Izumi's genes. Yeah. Fuck that shit though. That's garbage. When we weren't giving him the lab rat treatment, Sarah and I showed Izumi our favorite parts of this bewitched city. Near the end of our comrade's time here, we went to Porter World, and Sarah and Izumi played round after round of Mario Kart, making faces into the cameras and trying to push each other off the track, while I sat behind them drinking and laughing. My heart was so full seeing how they loved each other, and loving each of them and their silliness. I had a premonition that night. It was a vision of something of some time in the future, with Sarah and our kid, our team project, goofing off with some video game, while I sit watching in the background, laughing and drinking.
Thank you again to Ruth Bryant. And earlier when I did that hush moment, it seems like it could have been on purpose, but it wasn't. And we've got a little bit of a change up in the lineup. By the way, the little flyers that are going around and the posters are the lineup, but we have a little bit of a change in the lineup right now. I'm going to welcome to the stage Matthew Robinson. Matthew Robinson is the author of the novel The Horse Latitudes, is co-editor of the online literary journal The Gravity of the Thing, and lives, writes, and teaches in Portland, Oregon. Thank you, Matthew. Welcome, Matthew Robinson.
3 in, and I've laughed and wanted to cry, and I've celebrated and I've mourned, so I fucking love readings. Thank you, Dawn, for tonight and all the nights. This is a story that's not finished, and it's called Invisibility. Ectoplasm, Sam says. Like Ghostbusters, I say. He shakes his head, not like Ghostbusters. We turn the corner and step onto his driveway. Our sneakers crunch leaves. In Ghostbusters, it's all Class 4 ectoplasm, actual ghostly beings. Class 2 is like a light mist. It's mostly see-through. We're going for Class 3. That should give us a really nice, solid cloud, I think. He opens his front door and waves me inside. A blanket the color of cream corn covers the living room window. Light comes through a brownish yellow. The biggest TV ever sits along one wall, cardboard cutouts sticking off both sides. Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, others I don't recognize. Freddy is pregnant on the cutout for the dream child. Where I would put my hand to feel for kicks, there's a sticky note in black block letters. Pizza. You hungry? Sam asks. In the kitchen there are 2 pieces on a plate in the middle of a small table. It's the frozen kind and it's supreme. I hate onions and peppers, but I don't want to tell that to Sam. We each take one. I bite, chew through the awful taste, and swallow. What's the cloud made of? I say. Sam is fingering the papers covering most of the table, white envelopes with green and pink and red showing through the little plastic windows of each. Pages are tacked to the wall above the pile, too. Sam, what's ectoplasm made of? Sam smiles big, his teeth small and shiny. You're probably thinking slime, right? That's just a bunch of slime? It isn't, though. That's just the word they use for psychic energy. All kinds of energy, really, from all sorts of things. His hands move wide in front of him like so many things can create psychic energy. All we have to do is summon the cloud around us. His dark hair swings across his forehead as he talks. Like ninjas, I say between bites. Sam drops his hands to the table. Not like ninjas. He tosses his crust into the empty box. You're thinking of smoke, actual smoke. You don't summon smoke, you use like a smoke bomb or something. We're talking about energy. The cloud is supposed to come when you reach a certain level of consciousness. His hands are up again, swirling like something is apparently all around us. His arms are dull white, the blue veins showing through as they gather near his wrists. Pizza sauce on his upper lip. Like enlightenment, he says. Like meditating, I said. His hands return to the table. He cocks his head, ear to shoulder. Don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of dumb. I swallow my bite before it's chewed, the sharp scraper that goes deeper than I thought swallowing goes. Sam is back to flipping through the paperwork. I put my crust on the plate and hide his in my hand. It's okay, he says, not looking at me. I fit his whole crust into my mouth. I have some books you can borrow. I expect to taste spit or feel something, some sign that it was just in his mouth. It just tastes like dry crust, but it feels a little like I stole something, and my face feels hot and I chew for a long time. In his bedroom, the window is uncovered and open. I blink at the brightness. Through the wall, I hear Sam brush his teeth and pee and wash his hands. The pizza sauce is gone from his lip when he comes back. What are those, I say? Oh, body parts, he says. A hand and forearm chopped off below the elbow, 2 slight nubs of bone at the end rest on his dresser, a foot severed above the ankle. Here, look. He pulls out an issue of Fangoria from his nightstand. He tosses it on the bed and it falls open by itself, like to a centerfold. The most realistic lens money can legally buy. New and improved formula now with 10% more connective tissue. Sam drops his finger on a picture of a car, cutting a melon in half with its tire. This is what I'm saving up for, he says, the torso. Our heads are leaning close. He smells like soap, my breath like pizza. I just want to complete the set. I don't really have any plans for them anymore. He closes the magazine. So, are you ready? Then he starts to smile, his eyes close for longer than a blink. His teeth flash. I'm ready. He closes his blinds and takes matches out of his dresser. He lights the end of the long brown stick and blows on it until it glows orange. His cupped hands push the smoke around. I think I might sneeze. Sam opens his closet. The walls lined with white sheets and black polka dots the size of nickels. Hanging down from the ceiling are the same sheets cut into long, narrow strips, dozens of them. The floor is covered with pillows. He pushes the end of the smoking stick into a small black hole. As high up as he can reach. Have a seat, he says. We sit down, crisscross applesauce, facing each other. Our knees are touching and my back is almost against the wall. Sam pulls the door closed. A little light comes in from underneath. He adjusts the pillows until there is only black. Okay, he says. Look at it like this. All matter is made of atoms, right? I nod, but he can't see me. I hear the click and whir of a small fan starting up. Strands of sheets brush against my cheeks and shoulders. So is the cloud, he says, and it's dense. It absorbs light. Any light that hits it. I nod again. Another click in the room flashes, so bright my eyes close by themselves. On and off, more flashes. I start peeking bit by bit, and in a few seconds I'm blinking wide-eyed. The strobe light confuses me. Dots are floating around me. Sam is only partially visible. The sheets between us blending with the sheets behind him, so he kind of glimmers. The dots move slowly as if underwater. The smoke is getting stronger when I scrunch my nose. Can you see me? He says. Kind of. He reaches towards me, wrist small like my wrist, covers my eyes with his hand. Can you see me? No. Am I invisible? No. I feel myself leaning into him. He drops his hand. It lands half on my knee, my face feels hot, and there's a long pull along the inside of my thigh. See? He says. Through the sheets, his smile is so big I see gums. No light, no invisibility. I feel along a strand of sheet floating between us and let my hand fall half on his hand. The key, he says, is stopping the light. I nod. So is this the cloud? Oh no, this is just going to help us summon it. Now, you look straight at me, and I'll look back. Try to look through me. The cloud should start around the edges of your vision and work its way in. Once you can't see me at all, you'll be in the cloud. What should I think about? Nothing. I nod. What should I do, once I'm in the cloud? Should I say something? Sam's glimmering. The wind from the fan brushes the sheets along my face and back. No, don't say anything, in case I'm still working on summoning my own cloud. He opens his hands and my fingers slip inside, his cool skin against my warm skin. Just squeeze, he says, real small, and I'll do the same. I squeeze once for practice. He squeezes back, just for practice. And my chest is attacking me that I can't breathe through. We sit like that, looking at each other in the flashing light and swirling dots, me trying not to sneeze, trying to catch my breath, waiting, hoping Sam squeezes my hand before either of us gets through. The door erupts with a series of fist-sized bangs. It pulls open and fresh air rushes in, especially cool in the places where Sam and I are touching, where we're starting to sweat. The woman is in the doorway, but my vision is all polka dots. What in the hell, she says. Sam pulls his hand really quick. Nothing, we were just, you goddamn, get out, she says, get the fuck out. I scramble onto my hands and knees, but my feet are asleep and I can't get them underneath me enough to stand. Sam says something, but I hear a series of small thuds. She's grunting, but not making words, and he's a whimper and kind of breathing me inside and crying, and the door slams shut. My feet are pins and needles, and I'm nearly upright when something hits my back so hard I feel fire in my chest. The force of it knocks me back to the floor. When I turn, she's holding the forearm by its bone, bringing it down again, catching my cheekbone and my ear. My eye goes dark and the room is ringing. I roll away from her and cover up with my arms, trying to protect my face, my other eye. The heavy forearm slams into the back of my head and I'm gone and fallen out of this room, away from this woman, into flashing light and the small whir of a fan, into the coolness of skin and the smell of soap. I have to remember, tomorrow I have to tell you, I think I found the cloud, and it's not like you said, but I'm in it and I'm waiting, and tomorrow I'll tell you, but right now I'm in it and I think it's working. Your hand covering my eyes. Sam, can you see me? Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next, please welcome to the stage Joan Cameron. Joan is the founder of Your Beliefs Matter. She's a writer, a coach, and a workshop leader on a mission to raise global consciousness. She helps people to free their mind of the prison of their doubt and limiting beliefs. Her upcoming book, The Girl Who Believed, is about a daughter facing the biggest challenge of her life, trying to help mom overcome a terminal diagnosis when the high-powered world of traditional medicine gave up on her. It's an inspiring story of the magic of believing that unleashes our often untapped inner power to heal that takes them on the most extraordinary journey of their lives. Look her up at yourreleasematter.com. Please welcome Joan.
Well, I really want to thank Domi. She's been just my rock. We meet a couple times a week and she supports me, so thank you so much. I didn't know any other life than a life with a mother, a healthy mother. That is, until something went terribly wrong. You know, Joni, the worst part is not knowing what is wrong with me, Mom said. But after 5 months in the painful cycle of tests and waiting and more tests and more waiting, it was finally over. It wasn't what we wanted to hear. It was bad, really bad. The radiologist was the last stop. He was friendly. Mom was friendlier. She smiled at him like she smiled at everybody, with love. He pointed to the x-ray and a tiny spot on her lung and said, if we were to treat the cancer with radiation, we would have to do a swath of radiation across all the healthy tissue in 6 directions to kill the cancer. We treated 5 days a week for 3 weeks. That sounds exhausting, Mom said. And how barbaric, I thought, that I held my tongue, as my mom said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. He went on to say, our job is to help people, not hurt them, and radiation would hurt you. That was the end of the road, and it felt like he was reciting her last rites. Dad sat in the corner, a thick string of saliva dangling from his mouth, until he swept it away with a handkerchief Mom embroidered for him when they got married in 1956. I wasn't sure if he could hear, but it really didn't matter. The doctor's body language said it all. I asked the doctor what he thought about alternative treatments, and he answered much the same as the chemotherapist. If there was any proof that alternative medicine worked, we'd use it. Searching for some glimmer of advice or hope, I asked him if the food she ate could help, or whether she should avoid sugar. There isn't any proof that sugar causes cancer, he snapped. That comment said it all, and I stopped asking questions. I thought people only know what they know, and people will fight to the bitter end defending their beliefs. The doctor broke the awkward silence, handing Mom a brochure for hospice care. She smiled at him and thanked him. The next week, Mom sent him and all the doctors a thank you note. I snatched the brochure and threw it in the garbage. We left the doctor's office and passed by the receptionist's desk, as there would be no more appointments. Dad drove cautiously home, doing great, I thought, despite the sinister effects of Parkinson's. Mom was slumped over like a tiny rag doll. I sat staring at the road with tear-filled eyes. Mom barely made it to the velvet gold love seat, where I had my first kiss. And after she caught her breath, she said, Joni, why don't you take some of that jewelry? I won't need it anymore. I couldn't breathe. I felt I was being pulled down by the underworld, but I couldn't let her down. So I took a deep breath, I swallowed and said, oh, that's okay, Mom, we'll deal with that later. I wanted to race out the door, escape this nightmare, but Mom spoke again and said, could you figure out how much those dolls are worth, the ones you gave me from Europe? Why, Mom, I asked. Your dad will need the money as he won't have my Social Security anymore. My heart collapsed. But as if someone moved my lips, I said, don't worry, Mom, we'll take care of Dad. I know you will. Now you better get going or you'll hit that nasty traffic. I hugged Mom ever so gently, then Dad. I tried not to run out the door, hoping the floodgates wouldn't open when Mom said, drive safely. I barely got into my car and shut the door before the tears exploded from my eyes. My stomach cramped, My chest heaved up and down. I couldn't swallow, choking from grief. My mind was drowning in the excruciating thought that Mom was dying. This can't be happening. I can't lose Mom. My tortured sobbing turned into a defeated whimper as I turned on the engine and began driving home. Tears streaming down my eyes and my cheeks. I do remember the traffic, but I don't remember driving. In about an hour, I arrived home safely. Maybe it was an angel, maybe it was Mom, or maybe it was Granny Alice looking after me from heaven as she cried for her daughter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. Oh, excuse me. Elizabeth. This is Sarah, by the way. This is the awesome wife. Next, next I got a special, he's a special guest to me because I love the dude, but Sean Davis is the author of The Wax Bowl of War and the upcoming history of Wildland Firefighting, Oregon. He has stories in Misfit Manifesto, hell yeah, The City of Weird, and the upcoming Untold Gaze by Stephen O'Donnell and Gigi Lilly. Yeah. He also talks to his 7 chickens, 2 cats, and dog in McKinsey Bridge on a daily basis. Welcome, John Davis.
I forgot to put that in there. Thank you so much for all of you guys coming out. I'm so happy to be here, especially since you're going to end it, supposedly. I don't think you're going to do it. So it's Memorial Day weekend, and before I joined the military, Memorial Day to me meant it was my father's birthday. He would joke around and say, "It's my birthday, I'm giving the rest of the country the day off." He died, I guess it was 9 years ago. He'd be 65. Couldn't imagine him that age. But I've been thinking about him a lot for some reason, so he made it into some of my writing. This is fictional, but it's a lot more true than what you'd think. Pop was the son of a bitch right until that goddamn beaver broke his neck. No one saw him die, but we all knew what happened, sure as anything. There was no conspiracy, no foul play. His luck just finally caught up with him. The people on the river called that beaver Big Willie, and they told stories about Big Willie and his harem, but nowhere near the amount of stories they told about Phil Riley. Phil Riley, the man who put out the Horse Creek fire with quarter sticks of dynamite from a helicopter. Phil Riley, the man who put Gene Miller's prize sow into a coma by feeding her homegrown weed. Phil Riley, the man who robbed the Blue River liquor store with his 2 sons in the car for an April Fool's Day prank. He did that. My brother and I are here. Phil Riley, we were in the car. Phil Riley, he gave away $50,000 almost 20 years ago and single-handedly saved the town. Big Willie lived on Pop's property, and every couple of years he'd build a giant dam with his colony of female beavers. On a walkthrough inspection about a month ago, Pop saw that Big Willie had been at it again and flooded the property that was to be harvested. The contract loggers would charge at least double to cut the timber in that flooded area. So one drunken night he took off to clear the dam himself and killed Big Willie once and for all with a Bi-Mark shotgun slung across his back and a Pulaski with a cracked hickory handle. The next morning, mail truck Chuck found Pop's body with a shotgun on the bank of the creek. It really was a mail truck Chuck, too. I drove 3 hours up the mountain to the timber sales meeting the day of instead of the night before, like I said I would. Large trucks and beater cars filled every space of the community center gravel lot and a half of the quarries across the way. Old men with hats that told what war they fought in smoked outside the front door. I knew most by name. They knew me too, but only as the son who went to war, not the son who stayed. I nodded at them while I went inside. Planks of knotty pine lined the walls, the floors, and every flat surface. Needlework and nature paintings created by generations of mountain families hung on the walls. I smiled and shook hands when expected, but walked to the stand in the back. Martha Atwell, the widow of a man who owned half the RV and trailer parks on the river, walked straight up to me. She gave Pops his first job as a line cook almost 40 years back when she owned the River Inn. Her skin had loosened, her back hunched, and her hair blew, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Little Phil, so glad to see you. We had a few speak already. Bob's up next. Would you mind saying a few words at the end? Of course, Miss Atwell. All the towns that made up the community on the river were unincorporated and had no government, but no one objected when Big Bob Blaylock spoke for all of them in public hearings, especially during the timber harvest meetings. His boots echoed through the community center as he took the stage between the stand-up piano and the old bingo machine. He announced that the old town wholeheartedly backed the fast-track sale of Phil Riley's timber. Putting his hand over his plaid-covered heart, he shook his head with sympathy and told everyone that the Riley family has deep roots in the community, and the community takes care of their own. Whenever someone on the river was in need, someone else would be there to help. Then he ended his speech with congratulating the varsity basketball team for their latest win, but lamented the conditions of that old gym floor. Big Bob told everyone what an honor it was for him to be the fire chief in the Upper Mackenzie, but at the same time mentioned that the fire season would be tough without an engine this year. Afterward, it took 2 full minutes for Miss Atwell to climb the stairs and watch the microphone stand, and in that time, conversations picked back up. People talked to each other, and soon the room buzzed like a chainsaw, but when she said my name, everything stopped. And now little Phil will say a few words. I smiled and I waved as I walked through the parted crowd. I focused on the humming of the heater kicking on while hopping up the steps and walking to the middle of the stage. Thanks, Martha, Bob. I just want to thank you all for being so supportive in this time of me and my brother's lives. Pop died as he lived, spontaneous and searched for another appropriate word but failed. Thank you. I put my head down and sighed. My brother Keith motioned for me to say more. I let a fuck slip and then instantly looked at Annabelle Clayborne's kids playing off to the side. Oh shit, sorry Annabelle. Listen, I'm sure you're all wondering about the land, if me and Keith are gonna sell it. Sell the timber or sell the land and sell the timber then the land, and what we're gonna do with the money. And the truth is, I don't know right now. Big Bob Blaylock calls out, you boys have representation. Did you read the deed? The contract for the land? No, Bob, but that's a great idea. We'll do that. I'll know more next time we meet. Bob's question gave permission for the levee to break, and soon there were more words than I could make out. Okay, again, thank you all. My brother and I are a little bereaved still. Let's get our feet under us. Keith and I are going to think about the sage advice that Phil gave us over the years and figure this all out. Thank you. And with that, I hurried off the stage and I grabbed my little brother and we left. An hour later, we're at Keith's unfinished cabin. The wood stove radiates heat and he's handing me a beer. Dad's sage advice? We're going to think about Dad's sage advice? He laughs. Man, the only thing that he ever told me that I remember is to never wear overalls when you have the shits. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. The microphone has been handed to me, so now I'm going to do the next introduction. Our next reader is Carol. And Carol, I've never even heard your last name. Fishbach, right? Carol Fishbach is a writer who believes life is meant to be a never-ending adventure. With a student archetype, she has earned 2 bachelor's degrees, 2 associate degrees, and most recently an MFA. She was the oldest person in her nursing school class and became an RN at age 64. She worked as a nurse in memory care and learned to meet people in whatever dimension they resided in. Writing is the portal through which she pursues passion, education, friendships, and tribal longings. She has a few published essays and is currently at work transforming her thesis into a manuscript. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you to Tommy.
Sorry, my questions? Thank you, Dominique.
For inviting me for.
No, you're good.
Thank you for the stage at Burnt Tongue. And thank you, Leah, for mentioning plates and pins. One of my friends asked me if I had some rough masturbation.
Was it Leah?
No, but I was a writer. And this is from a longer essay that actually, a braided essay that I ungraded. So I have a complete piece, so hopefully it'll make sense. If not, oh well. Lately, when there is nothing else to hold my random attention deficits, I wonder how many gnats I've inadvertently eaten. How many flying insects have entered the space between my lips because they were out of my line of vision, hovering below my chin? One day when I was brushing my teeth, a fly bounced off the mirror and headed to my mouth, but I clamped my jaw shut just in time to elude him, then cursed his presence in my bathroom. When I leave the back door open for my kitties to go in and out, my house buzzes with the sound of insects. I hate flies. They're dirty and evil and poop on your food. I'm terrified that one of those despicable creatures might find a portal through which to enter my body. In grade school, my friend Barbara told me that one summer her mother ate a fly at a family barbecue. She'd been eating watermelon and the fly buzzed into her mouth, and before she knew it, she swallowed him whole. Ever since then, I've been vigilant about flies. Years later, when Barbara told me that her mother had developed breast cancer, I knew it was because of the flies. Being raised Catholic and having an angry, depressed mother, I never learned that our bodies are sacred places. I just knew I didn't want to fly in it. Mostly I learned that doors were closed when body parts might be exposed, and women's bodies stayed hidden under floral cotton house dresses. When I was in Catholic grade school in the late 1950s, there weren't any specific lessons about bodies. As a toddler, I can only imagine my mother swatting my hand away from the private parts of my body. But somehow I knew that touching myself was off limits unless I was swatting a fly or scratching a mosquito bite or rubbing a sore shoulder. Bodies were vehicles that transported you to school or church or work, and otherwise stayed parked in the garage with the door shut. Bodies were dirty and evil. The church says that masturbation is a mortal sin, same as the word fuck. I was in the 6th grade the day Sister Mary DeJour warned us that she was going to give us a word that might alarm us, but we had to be strong. I'm going to write a word on the board that you must never say out loud, she said. It is a mortal sin to say this word, and you will go directly to hell if you ever use it. When the church said mortal sin, what they really meant was infinite, eternal damnation, fire, burning, blistered skin, forever. No way around it. The nun's black robe swung in an arc when she turned her back to us and faced the blackboard. White chalk on slate gray, perfect Catholic cursive. Sister wrote the word fuck. I swore to myself that I would never use that word, not ever, even if I didn't know what the fuck it meant. But unlike the word fuck, there wasn't any mention of masturbation, much less that it was a mortal sin. This was before sex education in schools. Maybe I learned bodies were bad because of the ban on patent leather shoes, or how nuns swathed themselves in black robes. Maybe it was because my mother called me a whore when I was 11 before I knew what it was. According to the Catholic Church Resource Center, if a person is masturbating and knows fully that it is wrong and does it willingly without doing anything to resist, then he or she is guilty of grave sin. My fingers were very willing. They instinctively followed the smooth skin of my belly down to my vulva, teased my clitoris, drove into my vagina. My hand was an innocent accomplice. It felt good, and I didn't want to stop. But masturbation, like the word fuck, is a mortal sin. Later, I had to stop believing in heaven and hell for my own redemption. But before then, I was intent on doing everything in my power to go to heaven. It didn't take much because Catholics were first in line. That's what the nuns told us. Just to make sure I had all my bases covered, I repeated a mantra in my head. Jesus, Mary, Joseph loves me. Jesus, Mary, Joseph loves me. The nuns taught us that you had to bow your head every time you said Jesus. So I did. It seemed a small price to pay to keep my busy mind off my stomach aches, my loneliness, and my hypervigilance of everyone around me so I could keep them happy. My repetitive silent chant. I wonder if anyone thought I was having seizures or early onset Parkinson's disease. As a child, I religiously bopped my head every few seconds until the day my mother asked, "Why do you keep nodding your head?" Exposed, I could only reply, "I don't know." And I stopped. I couldn't say the words without the body. I always had to be a good girl. I vowed I would never say fuck, I would never touch my body in my private places. God was always watching, and if they saw me commit a sin, Jesus, Mary, Joseph would no longer love me, any of them. Eventually, I left behind all the accoutrements of Catholicism. The final break was when, instead of having Mass, our parish showed a movie on tithing 2 Sundays in a row. Apparently, you could buy your way out of the mortal sin of missing your Sunday obligation. Sorry, my hand doesn't work well. After that, I left Jesus behind in the collection basket, along with the hypocrisy of so many Christians. If I was going to be a rebel, I wasn't going to do it in the name of Christ. I sought spirituality and nature and synchronicities in the universe and souls that are hidden inside bodies that are different from my own. I tried to avoid Christians, but occasionally I still run into them. I probably shouldn't eat spicy chicken tortilla soup. I just had chemotherapy today, a woman next to me said at the New Season Soup Bar. She ladled soup into a paper cup to have a taste. I had noticed her when we both made a beeline to the soups and nearly collided. I liked her jacket. I've always been into clothes because I am my favorite thing to embellish. And Holly brought this for me to wear. Thank you. Particularly as I journey into cronehood with sagging breasts, wrinkled belly, and lopsided labia. The slightly plump woman was wearing a tan wool jacket with geometric designs spattered in light brown against gray with a pink ribbon on the lapel. A bluish, pinkish, purplish, nondescript pattern hat covered her bald head and did not match her coat. It blended. I noticed this because my belly generally feels more at ease when my world is orderly and matches precisely. But then again, I adore rebels who like to blend and think of them as artists. "Oh my gosh," I said, not wanting to startle her with, "What the fuck, chemo?" "Why do you need chemo?" the nurse in me blurted. Words poured from her mouth, her tongue too busy to notice she hadn't yet tasted the soup still in her hand. "I have breast cancer, a particularly bad one, triple X," she said. No pauses, tears, or complexities.
just the words without inflection. Wow, I responded. I touched her arm, told her I was a nurse. My curiosity and concern were quaking, ready to burst. I wanted to know about her life, her disease. I wanted to know how it felt to be a receptacle for cancerous growths that invade the sacred space of a body without its knowledge or consent. A disease that stayed hidden under stylish coats. Mostly I wondered if she'd ever eaten a fly. She told me her name was Debbie. She told me about XXX breast cancer, about her husband, about her sisters who each had battled breast cancer. They had less lethal forms of the disease, ductal carcinoma in situ and lobular carcinoma in situ. She told me how they both survived, but that she might not. The odds were against her. I wondered if she and her sisters laughed together, prayed together, or if the nurturing power of their womanness could heal her. I found Jesus when I was young, and I know he's with me through this, she told me. With Jesus, the support of my sisters, and my wonderful husband, I'm hoping to make it through. She didn't once bow her head. I wanted to tell her that I would send healing Reiki energy her way, that there were probably lessons hidden in her disease, and I hoped she would find them. But because she was so strongly Christian, I decided to use Jesus speak. I will send prayers and blessings your way. Thank you, she said, and abruptly turned and walked away. Afterwards, I picked out an infinity loop scarf that caught my attention. It had pinks and turquoises in it, colors I never wear. I thought about wearing it with a pink turtleneck and wondered if I had one hidden in one of my bottom drawers. Thank you.
And next people, we have a new reader. Julia Muka lives in Portland, Oregon, where she works in a neighborhood bar. Oh, you're not telling me which one that is. Anyway, she's a member of the Life Factory, a weekly workshop facilitated by Chuck Palahniuk, as well as a student in the PROS program at the Independent Publishing Resource Center. Her work has been featured in the Argonaut. She loves climbing mountains and was born on the darkest day of the year. Please welcome Julia Muka. Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks for listening, and thanks to Ami. This piece is a flash fiction piece, and it's called Being Human. The ad goes up on Craigslist under casual encounters. Female, 19, with amputated hand, seeking anyone interested. The picture uploaded is flattering, the wrist nipped and freckled. My face is missing, but you can see cropped shirt rising up to show a sliver of stomach. When the inbox dings, I sit straighter in front of my computer. Then I think, all right, don't be stupid. They can't see you. My hand clicks the mouse. The message is from a 37-year-old man named Rick. A man, not a boy, who wants to make me dinner tonight. Just me. No one has ever asked me to hang out like this. He promises mint garnish lamb chop, plus, wink wink, a bottle of Pinot. It's a good year, Rick says, from a vineyard in California. My tongue froths. I touch one finger to my taste buds, amazed at the response the human body has to promise. Then Rick asks if I have a name for it, my lack of hand. My thumb goes to the spot, the smooth nub. I tell him how soft and new the skin is, like it's been polished. It's the part of my body I touch most often, because no one else does. Rick promises a pet name. Then he asks if he can put it in his mouth. When I think of this, of my nub disappearing into the moist pink cave of a stranger's mouth, my legs clench. Okay, I take back. Sure, we can try that. We. The clock on the wall says 1 p.m. Rick gives me his address, which is on the outskirts of town, and asks me to come over at dusk. Google Maps shows me a picture of his apartment complex, and my breath quickens. I zoom in. It is a geriatric unit with balding grass, the faded letter Q over the entrance, bags of trash on Rick's deck. Well, not the best, but our night is playing out in my head and I don't want to interrupt it. What I'm seeing is a dry pink sunset, my hand curled around the stemmed glass. Rick will ask what happened while stroking my wrist. I will say, shark attack in Belize. I will say, my arteries died off. Disease. I will say, hand crushed under mom's SUV. I will not tell him I was born like this. Then Rick says, got to go, can't wait, and I send a heart. Before I log off, I look at bus schedules. The map shows me here, where I start, and the squiggly route that will take me to being wanted. It includes 2 bus changeovers and extra fare. I spin around in my computer chair, pushing off the desk with my right hand, my other limb against my chest. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And now, thank you very much, Julia. That sound again. Is that me? It was me. I'm like, what? Now it's time for a break. So let's take about 15, 20 minutes. What's we got? 5 minutes. Let's take 20 minutes and then get back in here and we will start over. Thank you very much. I'm going to fuck it up, aren't I? Red Bulls. Matt Rebel is studying fiction writing at Portland State University, the Attic Institute, and Literary Arts. He's a member of the Live Factory, a weekly writers' workshop founded by Lydia. Whoa, I almost said Lydia Pollock. Kick my ass. Chuck Pollock and Lydia Kovich. In addition to Chuck, several other of his teachers have been students of Tom Spanbauer. His work is forthcoming in 1001, the Journal of the Independent Publishing Resource Center. Please welcome Matt Rebel.
Thanks for coming. Dan is a man who will leave you slowly, even though you meet him on a speed date. Dan's the one you'll feel for when this chapter is over with, once he's safely in the past. One day, you'll laugh. You'll shake your head and shrug. For now, though, it's all still ahead of you, shiny and dangerous, waiting to spring like a trap. Just try to look surprised when it does. Dan will be an army man, and easily mistakable for straight. You know, that strange allure, that silence. That type who, when the time comes, will do what needs doing, but won't say what needs to be said along the way. Just wait. You'll learn so many things about Dan, only too late and mostly secondhand. Some things, though, you see up front. Things you really ought to run from, but you won't. Not yet. Like how he confuses sets for communication. Like when you ask him if he'd like to move in, and he'll stop and smile, sit down next to you on the couch, and then he'll shove his hand down your pants. You'll take that as a yes. You'll get a place in downtown Portland, close to work. You'll love that active urban life. Then Dan deploys to Iraq. Before his big official send-off at the Coliseum, you'll communicate hard and quick in the back of the car in the Rose Quarter parking lot, like he's answering yes to a question that you didn't know you asked. You'll get Skype calls from a dark bunk for a year, but this isn't communicating. You'll use your own hands, but it won't be the same. And Dan will return from the war even quieter. He'll find your active urban life too loud. All communication will cease. So one night, you'll ask him if he'd ever wear a ring. You know, like hypothetically. But hearing that, instead of going for your waistband, he'll just give this put outside, like you're his mom, and you asked him to take out the trash. Finally, because you can't seem to, Dan will do what he's doing. But this won't be the end of your life with him. No, this is just part one. Part part 2, Brett will also be an Army man. Dan will introduce Brett as his fiancée. That's right, engaged somehow before he's even moved out. But that's not surprising, not really. No, surprising is the choices that you can't imagine making, even if I told you. Well, I'm telling you, surprising is you, Dan, and Brett sitting in a leasing office in Gresham, signing a 3-way agreement. See, it'll just make sense. They'll be in love, and you'll be in love, and wouldn't that make for a really affirmative living arrangement? Because that's the theme of this chapter, isn't it? You digging yourself deeper while Dan digs his way out from under you. Brett won't be flabby like Dan. He'll be shallow in the chest, swimming in his tank top. His arms are going to be lean and long. You'll watch his hands working in the morning, peeling the cellophane off of his daily pack, picking a cigarette out, flicking the ashes over the balcony railing, and you'll have to wonder what that must feel like, being engaged. Before dawn, they'll knock you awake through the wall you share, Dan saying yes, yes to Brett, hard and quick, the same way Dan said it to you before his big send-off, the way he said it after that speed date. You'll wonder what questions Brett's asking to get so many positive answers. And you'll think, this must be what good communication sounds like. You'll say to yourself, what an affirmative arrangement. But it'll take a more alarming wake-up call than this to realize you're living in emergency. You'll know your submarine is sinking when the klaxon sounds, a red alert. You'll float fast from a deep nap, waddle through the wreckage of your still half-put-together room, an unfamiliar path. The empty walls will echo with the impact of your knees and elbows on the unpacked boxes. Standing in the little corner where your doors meet, you'll realize the clamor will be coming from their bedroom, Dan and Brett's. You'll know they shouldn't be home. Still, you'll knock. You'll call their names, then knock again. You'll put your hand on their doorknob, wishing you had even the most basic training for this, but you won't. So, what should a civilian do in an emergency? Would an Army man enter another man's bunk? How does Brett know all the right questions to ask, and why does Dan answer them so well? Do I really need to tell you everything? Thanks.
That was spectacular, Matt. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, we have Jessica Wadley. Jessica Wadley is a creative nonfiction author. Originally from a small town in upstate New York, Jessica moved to Portland 8 years ago. This summer, she is publishing her first chapbook of creative nonfiction, Sunshine, and recently released the first chapter in an ongoing comic series, Wilbur Siegel. She's an organizer with the Portland Zine Symposium and will be tabling her work at PZ's 18th annual show this July 28th and 29th. You should go. She's a Virgo, a proud unchaste reader, and is the overbearing mom of her wonderful cat, Baby. Please welcome to the stage, Jessica Wadley.
Hello. Okay. We had a conversation earlier about how all of us were afraid of the microphone more than anybody in the crowd. Like, I'm really grateful I don't have to adjust it. That's terrible. So this is the first chapter of my upcoming chapbook, Sunshine, which is a creative nonfiction project which kind of weaves together my trans coming of age story and then also my coming of age story as a sibling of someone with disabilities. So this is the first chapter. Johnson's restaurant off the interstate, working for tips from busloads of Canadians. On work days, she dropped me off with my babysitter, Nancy. Nancy lived in a yellow house with burgundy shutters, with pitched roof, single story. Nancy had 2 daughters, and there were usually other kids around that she was watching too. Nancy's oldest daughter, Jessica, was my very first crush. I spent my days pestering Jessica in all the annoying ways a 5-year-old boy would, following her around and talking at her incessantly. Her other daughter, Sarah, was my age and was constantly telling on me for all the things I did, showing off for Jessica's attention. An older boy would sometimes come over, and whenever he did, Jessica was always at his side. He was her age, and I don't remember his name, but Jessica looked at him the way that I looked at Jessica, and I don't remember feeling jealous of anyone before that, but I sure felt it then. Jessica and the older boy and Sarah and me were in the backyard one day in a small cluster of trees that felt like a forest. It was summer, hot and humid. The older boy started teasing me with a rendition of Matthew and Sarah sitting in a tree, K-I-S-S-I-N-G, as I shouted over him that I would never, ever do that. But he just kept going. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes Matthew in the baby carriage. Jessica laughed harder than the older boy as I stomped into the house. Nancy wasn't in the kitchen to tell me nope, back outside. I took my shoes off and set them next to the back door. The lights were off and all the windows were open to help keep the house cool. I wandered into the playroom, even though we were only allowed in there when it was raining or too cold outside. I aimlessly prodded the mostly broken toys. The dolls were missing clothes, or their hair, or their limbs, or some combination of all three, thanks to regrettable trips to the salon or emergency amputations of the doctor. There was an easel on one side with an empty, oversized pad of paper that was now just a rectangle of cardboard. The other side, a chalkboard I had drawn on with crayon, previously ruined. Jessica and Sarah's bedrooms were lofted over the playroom, tucked into the narrow pitch of the roof, and I found myself needing to get up there. I don't know if I knew my intention or not. My only certainty was knowing that I didn't want to get caught. I started up the first steps, and the pink carpeted stairs betrayed me with a groan creak. I dropped down on my hands and knees and crawled up the rest of the stairs, and the floorboards stayed quiet as long as I moved slowly. Their bedroom was small, smaller than my bedroom in Mom's single-wide trailer. There was just enough room for 2 identical twin beds and 2 identical dressers and not much else. The room was dark, with no windows, spare for a small circular skylight directly over their bed. Just a step away, there was a single shoe of the kind that comes in girls' princess costume kits, clear plastic and bedded with glitter, a slight heel. I stared at it, wondering what it would feel like to wear, even though I somehow knew that it wasn't allowed, that normal boys didn't do this. I braved a step forward and slid my right foot into it anyway. The shoe was too narrow, constricting around my toes, but I kept it on. Balanced on one foot for a moment, I put my full weight down until I was overwhelmed with the fear of getting caught. I wiggled my foot out and went back down the stairs on all fours, faster than before. Down in the playroom, I tried to act naturally, picking up some toys like I'd been playing the whole time in case Nancy had heard the ruckus. She didn't show. I'd gotten away with it, except now my penis was misbehaving. It was like it was filled up with pee, bulging in my shorts, and it wasn't going away. I tucked my penis into the band of my underwear and moved to the playroom door, peering out to make sure the coast was clear before skirting around the kitchen island and into the bathroom. We weren't supposed to lock doors, but I did it anyway. I pulled down my pants and I tried to pee out the hardness, but I couldn't. What pee I was able to push out went everywhere but the toilet, mostly down around my ankles, my undies soaking up the errant spray. I thought about calling for Nancy, but I was too scared I would have to explain to her how I broke my penis. The only thing I could do was try to dry my Fruit of the Loom briefs and try to hide it. I was an experienced bad hand pant sweater at the time, and I developed strategies for dealing with these kind of situations. I blotted handfuls of toilet paper and tried to come up with lies. I could just tell her it happened in the playroom when we found the shoe. As I worked, filling the toilet with wads of paper, dreading having to face my mother with my broken penis in just a few hours, the bulging went away. All I wanted to do then was get out of the house, to get far away from what had happened here. I pulled up my damp underwear and flushed. The toilet probably clogged, but by then I was out of the house, playing with Sarah, trying to ignore that Jessica was holding the older boy's hand and how soggy my underwear were. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Absolutely stunning. Thank you, Jessica. Our next speaker, Samuel Wildman, was born in 1986 on the second floor of a small bungalow in Seattle, Washington. His father wanted to be there, but got stuck in traffic. His only other notable achievement occurred in 2009 when he graduated from RISD, broke and marginally literate, with a BFA in sculpture. He has shown at numerous DIY spaces in Seattle and Portland, including Airbnbs, truck beds, a Canadian spa, and a chicken coop. In 2004, Wildman exhibited work at the Boise Art Museum and co-created Be Vintage with artist Eric Olson, a project sponsored by the City of Seattle and exhibited at the Washington State Convention Center. He was shortlisted for a Creative Capital Grant and nominated for the Brink Award. Wildman's work has been mentioned in Sculpture Magazine, the Seattle Times, The Stranger, and City Arts Magazine. Please welcome to the stage Samuel Wildman.
Hey, thanks for being here, Tommy. Thanks for organizing this. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
He was in the JetBlue terminal at JFK at a bar that looked like an advertisement for a bar. He drank one $12 Heineken and walked over to Hudson News and picked up an issue of the New Yorker. Even the ads were somehow sophisticated, he thought to himself. This was his first time on the East Coast. He was staring at the cartoon, hoping he was smart enough to find it funny. When a bejeweled woman appeared next to him, her fragrance, like an old library filled with fresh flowers, was so sophisticated and remarkable that it confused him. Out of the soft gray blue babble of airport sounds, her voice rose discreetly. It was so nice of him to put my picture in there with the boys. He turned a little to see if the woman was addressing him. "Let me show you," she said, as she moved closer and gently took the magazine from his hold. He watched her curled, arthritic hands as she flipped through several pages. They were radiant, like two small disco balls covered in gemstones. She stopped at a centerfold of Frank Sinatra, Fred Astaire, and Elizabeth Taylor. They didn't even tell me. What a wonderful surprise, though. Really, all these years later. He gazed at the picture. It bore an uncanny resemblance to his interlocutor. She handed the magazine back to him. Her eyes rolled over his young body like a steamroller. "If I had met you 40 years ago," she said in a very conclusive way. She moved past him with a gentle smile and gave his bottom a firm pat with one of her sparkly hands. He looked back and forth between the picture and the disappeared woman. Bedazzled and maybe stupefied, he pawed the ground with his hoof. He looked at the ink print of her young face smiling out from the glossy pages of the magazine and decided to go after her. Maybe he'd get an autograph or something, or maybe he'd get his butt cheeks on it, but she'd already evaporated in the rejected terminal.
Thank you. I see your eyes, Holly. I love you. Guess what happened? I messed up and fucked up the order. I'm one to own that kind of shit, so instead of pretending that didn't happen, I'd like to say, I am so sorry, Holly. But you are next. Are you ready? I love you, and anything I can do to help. Holly Stone Cave, I've known her since like a while ago. Holly Stone Cave has been writing her entire life. Her work began in second grade with a tribute to Sammy the Sour. She attended the Rudolph Schaefer School of Design in San Francisco, enjoying an esoteric education that prepared her for nothing practical, but inspired her to live in a world of color. She has relocated to the Pacific Northwest 30 years ago and now lives in a recycled cabin in the woods where she is visited daily by owls. She's been fortunate to study with Dorothy Allison, Pam Houston, Kim Adanasio, Gary Lilly, Sheila Bender, and her favorites, Bridget and Lydia Yukevich, to name a few. Thank you so much, Holly. You know I love you. I know you do.
I love you, Tommy, and I'm so glad to be here, especially because my car broke down 3 times trying to get here today. But it's weird. I did this weird, like, side of the highway thing where I put my hazards on, and I did this weird prayer where I said, thank you, God, for all my blessings, and it's only 15 more miles. You know? And then it started up again, and I just went, anyway, so tonight I have a couple of poems and a prose piece very quickly. In one of Lydia Yukevich's workshops, which are transformative, if you don't know who Lydia is, you need to.
Fuck yeah.
That's
why I workshop, by the way.
So one of the things that she asked that I thought was really interesting, apart from the eternal question, which is, what is the story beneath the story? What she said was, look at your work and see if there are some recurrent metaphors or motifs. And lo and behold, I found a few. And so for some of you who are familiar with my writing, this is not about sexual abuse or incest. It's just about death. So, honest to God. Okay. First one. Winds drizzle tears as souls damp, spongy moss, searching for spring. A fat robin plucks worms through root and wood and crepe. Chiseled granite words wrapped in rain glisten in spare sun to mark time and purpose. These silent hearts of St. Mary's at rest with dreams undone. Deep below now ash and bone as roses wilt above, in toppled bouquets of tribute and farewell. Wrapped in rain and ribbons, mulching now to soil this sober song missing you. Deeper than down where secrets take air, my old sorrow calls to me. Deeper than down in the cold, wet earth, your body, now only bone and ash. Deeper than down, you lie alone, your tiny heart silent so long. Driving out Discovery Road, in low morning tule fog and first light of day, I'm in Redmond Cemetery. There she stood, still, a quiet, gentle doe, tending to the gray-green moss atop a small marble headstone, its chiseled dates marking just a few years. She nuzzled the tiny marker as if knowing a child lay there beneath the snow and icy roof. She lingered as I watched. Car stopped, rain gurgling on the windshield view. She's nurturing this child, I thought, as her fawn stood nearby. There are moments when my mind travels to the granite and the grave in San Francisco, and etched words and iris, to the day of the first view of the small opening of earth, where I had to walk toward a little white box that held him. Cold rain, the smell of wet grass, soil, and sadness everywhere. The black limousine that carried me to the place where unremembered words were said, and I was given a shovel to toss dirt and forget-me-nots, then turned to leave my son in the ground. Deeper than down. A hard chill rises, shudders from deep within, as I realize he is only he is only bone and ash after these long years. No smile, no bright eyes. These are left to fading photos and words on paper, only bone and ash. No dusk after ordinary work day. I continue to perseverate on this during the long drive home as I contemplate my own fate. Winter trees are glazed by brilliant golden evening light before the sky changes, like a still antique painting illuminated beneath the shimmer of shellac. I pass Redmond's again. I think these are lonely places a mother should never visit. Yet, in this soft light, I hope some kind mother might tend to the earth above me when I'm gone, or that you might bring me flowers, or the silvery moon might send a shooting star to warm me. Tonight a star fell into the deep rolling water at North Beach as if in confirmation. Some mother, some kind mother will look after me.
Okay, are we good? We're good. Wow. Anyhow, the pictures are way bigger than this. Okay, so tonight I'm going to read for you a story that I wrote, which is called The Whole Story, which is a story about holes. There are all kinds of holes in the world. Like donut holes, and keyholes, and a hole in one. Most people think holes are a very easy thing to understand, but holes can be confusing. Like donut holes. People eat donuts with holes, and people eat donut holes, which are made from the donut parts get taken out of the donut in order to make a hole in the donut. Both taste very good. Some people put holes in places that don't have holes, like earring holes, and bullet holes, and Jesus holes. Because people like holes. There are glory holes, where faggots and married Republican politicians go to get on their knees and sing Hallelujah. There's an old story about a boy who put his finger in a hole in a dike. But he had to take it out because dikes don't like that. There's a kind of hole that isn't a hole at all. Astrophysicists call this kind of hole a black hole because hole of color has 2 extra syllables, which makes it very tiring to say. It is true that black holes are very black. It's not true that black holes are holes because black holes are solid. Some people call them dense. That's just mean. You cannot put on a spacesuit and whiz through a black hole. You'd break your head if you tried. No, it hurt a lot. But you would see even more stars. There are people-sized holes, like foxholes, and manholes, and the hole, which is where prisoners go when they're put on timeout. And there are holes in people. One of these people holes is called a pie hole. The neat thing about pie holes is you can put all sorts of things in it, not just pie. You can put a donut in your pie hole, or a roast beef sandwich, or a penis. Doesn't matter if it's a circumcised kind of penis or the uncircumcised kind of penis. Both kinds will fit in just fine. You can put them in one at a time. Number 2 of these holes is assholes. One neat thing about assholes is everybody has one. Another neat thing about assholes is some people don't just have an asshole, they actually are an asshole. Girls and grown-up women have a bonus hole. Boys and grown-up men have complicated feelings about the fact that they don't have a bonus hole. These complicated feelings are especially complicated for heterosexual boys and grown-up men because they're very interested in the bonus hole. Because they would like to put their penis in the bonus hole. But when they put their penis in the bonus hole, their penis completely disappears. And they're afraid they It's also troubling to them that girls and grown-up women leave from their bonus hole every single month without ever actually dying. This does not make very much sense to heterosexual boys and grown-up men. Bonus hole! People holes are very interesting kinds of holes. Things can go into people holes and come right back out. Or things can go into people holes and come out a whole nother hole or in a whole different way. For instance, of example, pizza and martinis can become pooping, peeing, puking. For instance, of another example, microscopic sperms can become a non-microscopic baby. It is fun to put things in holes. But you can get in a lot of trouble if you put the wrong thing in the wrong hole. Especially here in Georgia or Texas. So, say Liza discovered she had a hole in her bucket and asked Henry, dear Henry, to please fix that hole. Say Henry asked Liza, dear Liza, with what should he fix it? With what? Fix that hole. And Liza, dear Liza, helpfully suggested that Henry, dear Henry, could please fix that hole by putting his penis through it. Poor Henry, dear Henry, would not have use of his penis. And Liza, dear Liza, would not have use of his penis. donut.